Hello everyone, welcome to THLGK. This episode is one of the episode that leaves me really excited because I really enjoyed this subject. So I have to be really careful not to screw it up. Because I tend to complicate more than I should. I realize that. So let me try and explain what religion, what cult, and what mythology are. But here's the thing, there are two different ways to see it. The wrong way and my way. Well, no kidding. There is the religious way, which is wrong. And then there is the real way. That's why I made the joke, right? Because someone might say, oh, the real way is your way. Yeah. But I will try to demonstrate the difference between these two. So let's get to it. First, let's talk about the religious way. In the religious way, religion is at the center. So all other definitions are dependent on religion. And what is the definition of religion? Again, this one I'm going to use an external source because it's not what I think. So the basic definition would be the belief in and worship of a supernatural power or powers, especially a god or gods. That's not what religion is, okay? But that's how it's defined. That's why I say the religious way, which I call the wrong way. Could say a particular system of belief and worship. So that is at the center. I would condense it in a bit. Hang on, I'll give you one real definition in a bit. For religion, we have cult and we have mythology. Mythology, if you look at a definition, is the study of myths. What are myths? Myths are lies. Oh, people are going to get mad. I know. Okay. Myths and narratives that are used to tell stories. Are they true? No. Okay, what we call things that are not true? Lies. But they are not lies. Okay, again, believe wherever you want. So, but look, irrelevant. What matters is, what are myths? What are mythology actually? Mythology, when religion is at the center, mythology is, it can be two things. This is very exciting. Mythology is either dead religions, but they don't like this. Okay? They don't like you to think that a religion might be dead. That the religion dies. They die, but they don't like. So they basically say it's a false religion. This is what I say. Look, this is what I say. Myths are lies. They tell you myths are lies because they use mythology. They're basically saying what is mythology, lies, but they don't want you to know. It's fantastic. Look, again, religion, the belief in worship of a supernatural power or power, especially God or gods, right? This is at the center. Mythology is a false religion or a dead religion. I just gave away the second one. Why? You have dead religions. Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology. Are those religions in existence today? Let's say no. There's debate, but let's say no. So what is it? A dead religion. Because it fits the same thing. The Greeks believed and worshipped supernatural powers, gods. So did the Egyptians. So did the Norse. That's why, you see, they don't want you to treat myth as a lie because it will affect them a bit. But that's what it is. That's what they're telling you it is. The moment they say Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, they are no longer treating them as religions. They are religions. But they are no longer around. People don't worship them, or at least in greater quantities, so they are called mythology. The other things they are called mythologies when it comes from Christianity, for instance, Shinto mythology, Hindu mythology. You see, those religions still exist today. There are still, I believe it's 1 billion people, if you consider them both, that worship those gods. But they are called mythology. Why? Because they are seen from a monotheistic, monolatric Christian perspective. They are false. So it doesn't matter if they exist, they are still mythologies. This is changing today because people are being more PC. So they try not to show that. But if you're going to look at the books of the literature, you see them treated as such. All of those are treated as mythologies, as false, as things that don't exist. That's why I'm adding another word here, specifically from Christianity. This is what paganism means. They made the first step was paganism. When they found a new religion, those are not religions. They don't believe what we do believe. They don't believe in God. They don't believe our own God. So they are false religions. So they didn't call them mythology. They called them pagans. That's where paganism comes from. But it became more PC, thus it became mythology. And today, they probably use only the nomenclature. Shinto. The Shinto what? The Shinto what? Yes, religion. The Hindu what? Religion. So paganism within the Christian context is this. Is false religions. Is another definition. Look how definitions are becoming more and more simple. We had religion, the belief and worship, blah 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 blah. Now, mythology is either a dead religion or a false religion. False religion is another name for paganism. But more PC uses mythology, and today usually the name of the religion. But that's not how it stops. We have another thing to define. Cult. Cult is a very, very interesting thing. Man, I was really impressed that it existed in the first place. I had no idea. Look, people from the Romance languages, from the languages that come from Latin, do not see cult as a negative. In fact, cult is a verb, it's an action. We say all the time, in Portuguese, for instance, Spanish, I believe, French, Romanian, Italian, we are going to cult at 9 a.m. The cult starts at 7 p.m. Because cult means worship, to worship. You can Google this. Google the origin of the word cult. But then, when I was in my last year of college, there was a class called Christian Cult. And I went online, Christian Cult, in English. I went to search. And to my surprise, I didn't find anything. I was like, whoa, hang on, what is this? And then I discovered, in English, the word is service. Because cult is a word with negative connotations. Why is cult a word with negative connotations? Because it was made to be. You see, look, when you are in a religious context, you don't need the word mythology. You use paganism to deal with the other, right? And you don't need the word cult. You use heresy. That's a heresy. Mormons are a Christian heresy. And so on. Christians, in fact, are a Jewish heresy. But then, in the context of the United States, which you have this more enlightenment view of rights, the Constitution, right, the Bill of Rights and all that, and eventually the First Amendment, you can't persecute heresies, because that's basically an internal problem of religion. Like, who cares if they are Christians because of this and the others believe this? That is not the job of the state to interfere. So apparently, I believe the term is pejoratization. Let me confirm here. It's when you turn I'm giving up. It's when you turn a word and give it negative value. Here, it's pejoration. It's a linguistic process where a word meaning degrades over time, shifting from a neutral or positive connotation to a negative or derogatory one. Let me put it here if you want to check it out. Pejoration. Pejorative, right? Comes from pejorative. So this is the process that happened to the word cult. Again, in the origin, it's not a negative word. In the Romance languages, the language closest to the original meaning, it's not a negative word. So it went through this negative process, I believe, so you could have an excuse to persecute religions. Because what are cults? What are heresies? They're religions you don't like. The religions that another religion doesn't like. This is what they are. So here's the redefinition of the terms. Religion is a cult accepted by the state. A cult is a religion not accepted by the state. Mythology is a dead religion or a false religion. When you deal with religion that is the center of the definition, this is what happens. These are the true definitions of these terms. Because think, whenever you hear cult, it's negative, right? It's like gang. Whenever you hear gang, something negative happened, something bad happened. So whenever you hear cult, your mind is trained to think something negative. And our mind is trained to think a cult is not a religion. Thus, the conclusion underlining it is we can get rid of it. We can persecute it. You can destroy it. Now, as I said, this is the traditional religious perspective, which is the perspective most people subscribe to, knowingly or unknowingly. But there is another one. What I call the real one, the truthful one, which is when mythology is at the center. Mythology is the study of myths. Myths are these narratives constructed to explain something, to teach something, to manipulate society, to manipulate people. In other words, myths are lies. It's what they are. Did the things in the myths happen? No. So they are lies. They are lies with an objective. And what is their objective? Teach something, a moral value, a part of story they want the population to know, control people. It varies. But it is the idea. This is what it exists. So you have Greek mythology, you have Egyptian mythology, you have Norse mythology, right? These myths, the study of the myths of the Greeks, the myths of the Egyptians, the myth of the Norse, and Christian mythology. I should say Christian mythologies because there are many. So the study of the myths of Christianity, they are all the same thing. Everything is mythology. Everything is myths. Everything is narrative construction with an objective, and since the ultimate objective is to control people, social control. And they do that to deceit, manipulation, and lies. It's what I've been talking about. This is what exists. With mythology at the center, what are cults? Cults don't exist. Heresies don't exist. What you have is, if something that was thought of as a heresy or as a cult springs up, let's say from Christianity, you treat that as a different mythology. See, there is no value. Oh, this is evil. You should eradicate it. No. It's all the same thing. If you should eradicate one, should you eradicate everyone? Right? That would be the logical step. But the religion you are part of is always the good one. The other ones, yeah, they you can eradicate. But the ones you believe, no, that one is untouchable. Come on. But this is the thing. With mythology at the center, the other things they don't exist. Even paganism don't exist, because paganism is something exclusively from Christianity. It's how Christianity looks at the other religions. They are false, they are pagans. They don't believe what we believe. Basically this. Now, religion exists. And what I call religion here is the system that instrumentalizes mythology. So you have the Christian myth. Someone or a group of people instrumentalizes the Christian myth. Myths, right? It's plural. The Christian narratives. And they instrumentalize it with an objective: social control, an objective will give themselves benefits. That's why it's social. This is what religion is. Religion is the instrumentalization of myths to the benefit of a group of people that uses these stories manipulating the population so they can get ultimately some sort of advantage. Of course, a lot of people won't agree with this. Of course they won't. Come on. I know. I know what I'm saying here. But I don't care. This is what it is. Remove religion, you can have the myths. Even though the myths tend to be constructed by religion. So you have a narrative, religion instrumentalizes, and then because the narrative tends to be dated, they have to keep creating new and new myths, more and more and more and more, adding to it, transforming it, so that manipulation continues being effective. So with mythology of the center, religion is the system. They're connected, of course. Again, religion is the system that generates the myths, then instrumentalizes the myths, uses these narratives to control people because they'll get a benefit from it. And of course, come on, of course, they give something to the people as well. Of course there is a benefit for the people that are being manipulated. Otherwise they would revolt. I mean, anyone knows this. There has to be something to be gained by the people being manipulated, but that doesn't remove the fact they are being manipulated, and that the people using of the manipulation are taking an extremely positive advantage from it, for the instrumentalization of mythologies. Now, I said a lot, but the most important part is still coming up. Look, two ways. The more religious way, religions at the center. And they like to pretend they are something different. They aren't. Everything is the same. Religion, mythology, cult, heresy, paganism, they are all the same thing. They are all mythologies. But with religion at the center, if you want a quick and precise definition, one that is different from their system of belief and blah 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 blah, because think of the definition of religion. A particular system of belief and worship. Everything is a religion. A cult is a system of faith and worship. A mythology is a system of faith and worship. Everything is a religion under this definition. The belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or god. A cult fits the definition. Mythology fits the definition. There is no difference. With religion at the center, there is no difference. Everything is the same thing. The difference is political. Nothing more than political. A cult is a religion that the state does not accept. A religion is a cult that the state accepts. Mythology is a dead religion, a false religion. All these differences are political. That's why I say there is only religion. If you hear, oh, they're a cult, the word has gone to negativization, pejorization. So you think it's a cult, so you think it's not a religion. Thus, you can persecute it. That's the reason. That's the objective. Oh, it's a mythology. What are you talking? It's a mythology. Do they believe in a particular system of faith and worship? Yes. Then why is it not a religion? Oh, because nobody believes it anymore. It's a dead religion. But they don't want you to think religions die. And yet you have many dead religions. Or it's a false religion. Religions that still exist, but from your perspective they are false, so they are mythologies. Because the reality, this is from where the right definition comes from. It's not that everything is religion, that everything is mythology, everything is myths, is the study of myths. And myths are narratives. And then you can say whatever you want. You can read all the definitions of myths. The only thing you end up, if you take the definition serious, are myths are lies, as stories constructed to lie to us. This is what myths are. It doesn't matter if they want to teach a moral value. It doesn't matter if they want to teach a supernatural truth. If some of those things could you add supernatural and truth in the same sentence, oh, that makes a lot of sense. It doesn't matter. They are all lies. The myths of founding a nation, they are lies. And why do you need lies? Because you want to manipulate people. That's what religion is. Religion is the system that instrumentalizes myths, instrumentalizes mythology, turns into a tool. That's the meaning of this. It turns mythology into a tool to control people. And they do that through manipulation, deceits, and lies. And why do they do that? Because they have a direct benefit from manipulating people. So religion is not a system of belief. No, nothing. Religion is the system of control. This is what religion really is. Religion, as defined in these dictionaries, these are mythologies, system of beliefs and all that. Religion are systems of control. They operate mythology, they instrumentalize mythology to achieve the control. Because they benefit from it. They benefit from the story. But they change. The thing is, yes, a little bit more complex, but religion even creates the myths. Right? So we have the Jews in the New Testament. They used the myths of the Old Testament and they created more myths. And we have today. The Christians of today have a bunch of myths that don't exist in the New Testament. The Trinity, for instance. There is no Trinity in the New Testament. Mary being all this, the Catholics make her. Even the saints. There's nothing of this in the New Testament. These are new myths. So religion also creates myths because it needs them to survive. So it's a connected system. Although mythology can exist without religion. If all religions were destroyed, if they all ended, you still have mythology, you still have the myths. But then they would be seen as an object of analysis, an object of study. Anyway, let's get to what really matters. What really matters is there is no freedom of religion. This is what really matters. Because it's the state that determines what religion is and what it isn't. That's the secret. That's what most people are not told. It's nice to live with the illusion of religious freedom, but there are no religious freedom. Every single country in the world throughout history never had freedom of religion for two reasons. They're basically one. First, if you have freedom of religion, the religion who takes power will end the freedom of religion. It's very simple. They're always fighting. Look at Christianity. They're always fighting themselves. I was reading. The guy appears with the mark of the cross of ashes in the forehead, and other Christians that were quoting biblical verses attacking them. That's the thing. They consume themselves. So if any one of them had power, if the state let the religion run its course and one of them achieved power, it was over for all the rest. You don't have that because they are kept in control. And because they all know. They all know. They all play the game. They all know how far they can go. Do you doubt me? Why do you think not a single religion tries to forbid its members from giving taxes? Come on! Really? Give Caesar what's Caesar's. Isn't it convenient when they don't have to pay taxes? But isn't it convenient? You think this is a bug? Oh boy. They don't, because the moment one of them did, it was over. The state would arrest the leadership. If it wasn't enough, the state would arrest the members of the churches. If it wasn't enough, the state would forbid that religion from existing. And do you think the others would oppose? No, they're all fighting each other. They all salivate with the idea of someone screwing it up and making the state persecute them. They all do. You think any of them would come in the defense? No, you would have, let's say it's in the Christian sense, you would have other Christian churches say, no, you all have to pay taxes. They are heretics. They are a cult. Come on. No one is innocent here, right? No one is this naive not to realize this. Yes. All religions are mechanisms of social control, and they only exist because the state allows them to exist. Because the state benefits from them. That's the truth. The moment they turn against the state, they are destroyed. It doesn't matter if you have the First Amendment. They will find a reason to make the First Amendment invalid and persecute them. It doesn't matter if it's Catholicism, it doesn't matter if it's baptism, Adventists, it doesn't matter. This is the reality. Okay, how many people did I piss off with this one? Really? Probably not a few. Of course, none. If current progression keeps up. But still, what can I say? I mean, let's be honest about the definitions. Let's be honest. Any of you, I didn't use any complex knowledge here. Any of you would get to the same conclusion if you stop to think about it. All you have to do is read the definition of religion, a system of belief in something supernatural, in a god. And then you go and look at all religions, you look at all cults, you look at all mythologies, you look at all heresies, you look at all paganisms. And you see, oh, they're all the same thing. They all fit the definition. Yes, because they're all the same thing. They're all mythologies. And religions are just the systems that people create to control that. To control others, actually. Using that. All under the watchful gaze of the state. So, if you found anything interesting, please consider liking, subscribing it, sharing it, checking out my other social media like X. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you all next time.